On this episode of Travels with Bill, we're at the Whiteshell Fish Hatchery in Manitoba's Whiteshell Provincial Park. Well, just down this little gravel road, you find something rather amazing. It's easier to see it from the air. This is the actual fish hatchery. Now, we're here on tour day. You can't always get in to take a look around. They have a little interpretive center, but to get to actually go see the fish, you have to show up here on the right day. So check the park website to find out when that is in the summer, so you too can see all of this in person. That's Adam. He's a park interpreter at the Whiteshell Provincial Park. Not only does he work here at the fish place, but he also works at the Alfred Hole Goose Sanctuary, which we'll see in another video. Adam's taking us on our tour today to show us 500,000 fish. One thing we're not seeing today is walleye. Those are already gone. By May long weekend, the fish hatchery is done with the walleye. They're all out in the lakes. So these are fish that take a longer time to grow. See them in the water there? These are like baby fish. They're so cute, eh? It takes a little longer. That's why they're still here, and they're growing to be ready to release. They'll eventually load these in the truck, take them to the lakes, and let them go. Of course, in the lakes, they'll get bigger and bigger until it's time to catch them. It's hard to see with the camera all the fish, but if you look real close, you can certainly see it. What's that netting about? Well, imagine if you were a bird and you could come here and eat all the fish you could. Well, the intention is to stop you. That's what the pretend eagle's there for, too. See those pipes coming in? We'll talk more about those later on. There's a reason why there's two of them, and there's a reason why they're different color. You can see the netting rolls up, so they can roll it up to clean the tanks once a week, and then put it back to keep the birds out. We're just going from tank to tank here, taking a look at what's in them, and it's fish after fish after fish. Like they say, 500,000 fish here on the tour today, but they go through millions of fish here every year, so certainly this isn't all of them. These are just the ones that are still here a little later on in the summer before they too get released. Now, I don't know if there's a reason they've painted this blue, but it sure looks cool, I have to say that. Fish here at the hatchery get fed 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night. This is the food for those little guys. See how fine it is? It's almost like, well, dust, really. But as the fish get bigger, they need bigger and bigger food because the big fish aren't that interested in the little food. By the time you get to the big fish size, the food looks almost like dog food. Okay, so we were looking at those big long strips. Those are tanks, but see the round ones too? Those are also tanks. We're going to move on over there because what's inside them is a lot bigger fish. Not the ones that are about to be released, but instead the ones they're keeping for breeding purposes. You can see the netting here again. The fish are a little bigger. These are a couple years old. They're working their way up to being 6 and 7 years old. When they get old enough that they're no longer useful for breeding, they'll release them into a lake someplace and they can live out their life in a lake. But they have to grow them up until they're actually old enough to breed. That's the differences between different kinds of fish. They're not all ready right away. You'll notice the catwalk going out to the middle. There's a tube there. If you pull that tube, the pond would drain. Now, they wouldn't drain it all the way, but they drain it down about half, then scrub the walls, then fill it back up with water. The fish stay in there, so obviously you can't take all the water out as they're doing that. As it turns out, we're actually here at feeding time, so we can watch what happens. You'll see them throw the food in here. Now, these are the most mature fish. There's no netting here because these fish are so big the birds couldn't actually catch them. It's hard to see the fish themselves. You can see a few there with the shine of the water, but you can certainly see the water moving as they chase after the food. It floats in the water just long enough for them to come up and grab it and splash at the same time. Notice those 2 pipes again that are both running water in? Well, you would think there's a lot of pumps here. You may even think they circulate the water and they filter it somehow, but that's as far away from reality as you can be because the water here is very special. In fact, where the fish hatchery is very special. You can see the lake in the background, and you can kind of make out how the hatchery is lower than the top of the water. The water here is all gravity fed from the lake. They have 2 different intake pipes, one fairly near the surface and one a lot lower down. Both of those pipes run over to the hatchery. That's why you see 2 different types of water running in. One's colder than the other. By adjusting the flow, they can make the water the right temperature for the fish. That works pretty neat. They never filter it because the water runs through the tanks, out the drain, and into the river, leading away from the lake. They've got a neat lookout spot here. You can come and take a peek into the river. Now, what water comes out of the lake through the dam comes down here. So really, the fish hatchery isn't doing anything to the water flow itself. It just detours it through the fish tanks and out it goes. So the fish do their, well, natural processes into the water it ends up in the same spot it would normally be. That green pipe we're seeing under the lookout spot is actually that drained water leaving back into the river. So there's a little bit of fish poop in there, and down the river it goes. You can't fish in the river here if you come through the fish hatchery, but you can fish in the river as long as you don't use this easy way to get to it. Now you'll notice that big building in the back. That is the actual hatchery, where we've been looking at these tanks are where the fish grow up. But where do they turn from eggs into fish? Well, inside there. And there's no public access into the building. But through the magic of video, let's take a peek. There's Adam again. This is an excerpt from a video shot during COVID when nobody could visit the fish hatchery, so they actually took some video inside so we could see it. This is what's inside that building. Rows and rows of tanks and that same lake water coming in and flowing through. That is baby fish. See them? So cute, aren't they? But they need to grow up and get a lot bigger. The fish start out like this. Most of it comes from south, from places where they make fish eggs. Okay, they don't make them, fish do, but they ship in the fertilized eggs ready to hatch. They come in these big styrofoam tubs. It looks a lot like caviar, because that's what caviar is fish eggs. The difference is these fish eggs are ready to go and ready to hatch. So you're going to dump them in some water here, get them out of the styrofoam trays where they've been stored. Obviously, time is not on your side here. You need to get them into the tanks as soon as you can. They measure them out into a bit of a measuring cup to get the right amount of fish eggs per tray, and then we're going to watch here as they dump them into the trays. They start out suspended. See the trays in the bottom corner there, the empty ones? Basically mesh trays. The fish eggs go in there in the water, and they wait there to hatch. When they do hatch out, then the little fish can swim away. Peek at what the eggs look like in the trays, and they basically just stay there waiting now until it's time for the fish to hatch. You can even see a little bit of growth in them if you look close. We'll head back to where the tour started at the little interpretive center here. It's kind of neat. They have fish all around the top. They've got a little display of what's inside that hatching building to give you some idea, seeing how you can't get in there yourself. They also have a little diorama in the corner too that looks like a fish tank, but really it's kind of fake. There's not water in there, but they have the fish laid out as well. If you're thinking about what kind of fish you might find in Manitoba, certainly lots of them on display here. These are stuffed fish. We'll have to talk a different day about how you stuff a fish, because it's not the easiest thing, but it can be done. Or can it? I guess they're kind of fake, but whatever. We'll call them stuffed fish for today. A little look at what they have here. There's some lake trout. Catfish is up next too, because the catfish, I've always found those ugly, but I guess some people like them. They fight really hard when you catch them, right? So they're kind of fun to fight, but I don't know if you do much else. Kids have been making some plans here for how you can help with our fish in Manitoba. Lots of little post-it notes there, kind of cool. And then up above that, a look at what kind of fish are in the hatchery the day of our visit. See, 228,000 of rainbow trout. Those are some of what we were looking at in the tanks there. Well, that pretty much wraps up our visit to the Whiteshell Fish Hatchery. Wanted to show you the ceiling in the interpretive center before we go, though. That looks absolutely amazing. Just think about how much work that was. Worth coming just to see that, I suppose. Speaking of coming, we talked about it before, but check out the website for the Whiteshell Park. They will tell you what day tour day is, so you too can come and walk through all the outdoor tanks, and maybe you can meet Adam. You'll see him throughout the Whiteshell Park in the summertime. If he's not here, he might be over the Goose Sanctuary, or you might bump into him someplace else. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button and click subscribe so you can see all the videos and interesting places we get to. For now, at least, we'll leave you at the Whiteshell Fish Hatchery, and we'll see you on the next episode of Travels with Bill.